This is a monumental decision that radically strips lower courts of their ability to rein in the executive branch. The Supreme Court held that essentially under no circumstances can judges issue nationwide or universal injunctions that prohibit the president from implementing a policy anywhere against anyone. And instead, courts can only issue relief to the particular parties that are joining the suit. What that means here is that in the 28 states that did not sue, that aren't party to the suit, the Trump administration can start to enforce its ban on birthright citizenship for the children of many immigrants. And this also has implications in the 24 other cases where lower courts have issued nationwide injunctions to block illegal Trump policies. The impoundment of domestic funds, the cancellation of foreign aid, the destruction of federal agencies, the illegal termination of civil servants, all of those actions were blocked by nationwide injunctions. And today, the Supreme Court essentially just dissolved all of those. So the Trump administration now has vastly more discretion and authority to begin to implement policies that may well be illegal under any reasonable conception of the law.
Andrea, I guess I'm struck by something that Justice Brett Kavanaugh, in his concurring opinion, sort of released yesterday, talked about, and it was interesting to me. He said, quote, "When a stay or injunction application arrives here, this court should not and cannot hide in the tall grass. When we receive such an application, we must grant or deny. And when we do, that decision will often constitute a form of precedent that provides guidance throughout the United States during the years-long interim period until a final decision on the merits." I was struck by the first part of that, let alone the rest of it, because I recall several attempts during the Biden years to bring this matter to the Supreme Court, and they refused to take it up. They did not want to deal with the efforts that were in place to address student loans, et cetera, that were being brought, or at least attempted to be brought before the court. I get the politics there. But this back and forth on this issue is something that administrations have dealt with over the years. So in one sense, it's not unique to Trump. It's just now the court seems to be so blatantly putting its fingers on the scale for one side versus the other.
That's right. I mean, the court has been quite erratic about this. And when I see that quote from Justice Kavanaugh, they've made some really big decisions this week alone. They decided this week without any explanation that the federal government can deport people to any third country, so any country that's not a person's country of origin, without adequate notice or due process, without explanation. So I think a lot of people, it's correct to say that this decision today expanded executive power, but it also really expanded the Supreme Court's power, because you're seeing how they are inconsistently weighing in on when they will grant enormous stays. Just last month, they granted a decision, once again, without any explanation, lifting a stay that will permit over 400,000 Venezuelans to lose legal status while the merits of that policy works its way through the court. So they're making huge policy decisions. It's a very extreme act. And so when I see that quote, I kind of asked, they're also setting up a next administration, which could maybe have a political ideology they agree with less, and they're empowering future presidents as well. So I don't really know what their long-term plan is, because they're setting up a very confusing checks and balances system. And we should all be really concerned about where Congress comes in here, as both of these institutions are gaining a lot of power and not always explaining logically their thinking to the American people.
I mean, to be very clear, at any point, Congress could step up and assert their constitutional authority as a co-equal branch of government. But the problem is Senator John Thune, aided and abetted by Speaker Mike Johnson, who was a chief cheerleader of the insurrection, by the way, lest we not forget, they are not going to do that because they are hand-picked people. I would argue Speaker Johnson more than Senator Majority Leader John Thune. But Speaker Johnson was handpicked for this reason. He was agreeable. He's like, oh, everybody likes him. And Trump wasn't going to speak badly about Mike Johnson, somebody that was with him in the trenches on one of the worst days of our democracy, of our country. He was with him. These are not the people that are going to have our back. So I say all that to say, Eddie Glaude, hop off my soapbox for a second. This let me just read Justice Sotomayor. This is a quote from her dissent. The rule of law is not a given in this nation, nor any other. It is a precept of our democracy that will endure only if those brave enough in every branch fight for its survival. Today, the court abdicates its vital role in that effort. With the stroke of a pen, the president has made a solemn mockery of our Constitution. One, do you agree? And two, I think about what I heard the president say in his press conference today, that these amendments, that the 14th Amendment, that those were meant for the children of slaves. They're being very particular about how they are interpreting the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which, as we know, are the Reconstruction Amendments that have been the law of the land since Reconstruction, but now I guess they're being reinterpreted.
So first of all, I agree completely with Justice Sotomayor. We find ourselves in a moment where the very foundations of American democracy are being challenged or being shaken. I think it's important for you to bring up what Donald Trump tried to do, and that is to invoke Reconstruction. The court participated actively in the dismantling of Reconstruction. We think about the civil rights cases of 1883. We think about United States v. Khrushchev. We see the very ways in which the court solidified an idea that this is a white republic. We tend to view the court through the Warren years as if it's always been on the side of democracy, when in fact the court has a complicated history in relation to a vibrant multiracial democracy. We are in a moment, historically, where the very foundations, just to say again, the very foundations of American democracy are at stake. And today, chaos has been unleashed across the legal landscape.
Oh no, we lost Eddie Glaude.
We lost that.
This was in the middle of a good one, too.
I want to pick it up with you, Andrea Flores, because I do think this is about American national identity. And you had Stephen Miller saying as much on Fox News just as we came on air. This is what he said. The Supreme Court has now cleared the way for us to restore the actual meaning of the United States Constitution and the idea that this special privilege does not belong to illegal aliens and their children. I want you to speak to that, Andrea, but also speak to the legal reality of what is going to happen if a child is born in one state in this country in which they are not granted citizenship and then travel to another state and vice versa.
So first, I want to tell and communicate to anyone who is scared of being impacted by this order not to panic yet, because there is still time for the lower courts to step in here. And a really great example of that is that the plaintiffs in the Supreme Court case, so the Asylum Seeker Advocacy Project and CASA, they've already filed for class certification and a temporary restraining order, and they already have a hearing on Monday. Now, I know that in Stephen Miller's summary, he wants the American people to believe that this is a question of, well, people who are undocumented, if they have babies. This order is far more expansive than that. So think of immigrants. Any immigrant on a status that is not a green card will be impacted by this order. And if it goes into effect in 30 days, then in 28 states, mothers who give birth will have to prove their citizenship in the delivery room, and nurses will have to verify it, and doctors. There were extremely disturbing reports today that women were already asking if they could induce labor before this 30-day period. I think that is what was so shocking about the court's opinion and decision, is that it was balancing. It said the executive branch would face irreparable harm if this injunction stayed in place. What about the irreparable harm of the maternal health outcomes for countless women that we don't even know about who are asking to induce labor? So the human cost is high, but I will just say again, don't panic, because there is still a remedy. But back to your point, Simone, if the pressure does not build on Congress, they will continue not to act. I mean, I think the organizing and the political branch, that is where the biggest hope is. We're going to hold on to this class certification. But at the end of the day, if people don't start calling Republican senators in those 28 states and asking them, is my doctor, when they deliver my baby, supposed to be asking me for my citizenship? Those are the questions that they need to start asking, because Congress may have to step in and they have to feel that pressure.